Tonight, it's always greener in Port Augusta. The new carbon-friendly facility turning smelter byproducts into treasure. And tough but fair, Clubs New South Wales proposes radical new laws to help curb problem gamblers in Broken Hill.
From our 7 Spencer Gulf Studios, your nightly news with Madeline Kerr begins now.
Good evening, thanks for joining us. A new cement manufacturing facility in Port Augusta is set to bolster employment and cut carbon emissions by at least 300,000 tonnes a year. The Hallett Group's project will recycle byproducts from the old Port Augusta powerhouse, Liberty Steelworks and the Near Star smelter, transforming them into a new green product.
A large employer is cementing themselves into the Port Augusta community. The Hallett Construction Group is set to open a new facility in the city by 2024, with ambitions to manufacture over 1 million tonnes of green cement each year.
Well, I was at the launch at Port Adelaide with Hallett Concrete. What they're doing now is that they're looking at the opportunity to get it into the environmentally friendly sustainability of manufacturing their concrete.
The green approach is fantastic for Port Augusta. That's where we've been tracking. So we're green and clean in the energy side of it, and now we're looking at green and clean companies.
The Hallett Group says the production of traditional concrete is the 3rd largest carbon emitter in the world, but by using byproducts already present at the nearby Wireless Steelworks and Port Pirie lead smelter in their concrete, they can reduce its environmental footprint.
The good thing about this project is looking at using the fly ash in Port Augusta and using the slag here in Whyalla and in Port Pirie to green up the production of cement.
Benefits the Hallett Concrete people because they'll be able to use that byproduct which otherwise would have been displaced and disposed of.
The member for Stewart says the project will bring a wide range of economic benefits to the Upper Spencer Gulf, including employment opportunities.
Look, this is going to create not only about $125 million worth of infrastructure at Port Augusta, but very importantly, it's going to create about 200 or 300 jobs during the construction period.
The Hallett Group will also employ 50 local employees to operate the Port Augusta facility when it's opened. The local community excited for the return of more manufacturing jobs back to the city.
You know, we were all devastated back in 2018 when the powerhouse shut down, and probably looking around 500, 800 people that were employed there that left this city due to that, So this is a great thing that's going to put Port Augusta in a better spot.
Edward McCarroll, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Proposed new rules centred around problem gamblers will give family members more power to do something about it. Clubs New South Wales has tabled a draft plan to show its commitment to those suffering from a gambling problem.
The industry's peak body is taking a proactive approach to problem gambling. Clubs New South Wales keen to tackle the problem head on. The proposed new laws will see families able to do more to protect their loved ones from the grips of gambling addiction.
If they feel their family member has a gambling problem, be able to approach the venue and request an exclusion from that family member gambling.
The new code of conduct is still in the draft stages. In it, an independent panel will be set up to determine whether a self-exclusion was appropriate. Self-exclusion is when a person with gambling concerns voluntarily excludes themselves from areas of specific gambling venues or even gambling websites. Part of the draft will also include just how long these bans will be in place for. The results to be implemented statewide.
Yes, it certainly is. So it's an industry-led proposal that's been developed by Clubs New South Wales, our peak body, with consultation with clubs across the state.
At the moment, under the current legislation, problem gamblers have to approach staff themselves if they are to receive help with their addiction. Staff are trained to identify the signs.
You can do venue self-exclusions, but it is in the name self-exclusion, so the individual has to come up and request that by one of the venues, and then we'll make sure we get the paperwork done and the help they require.
The plan is also set to tackle money laundering, though that is a bit harder.
So they're proposing that we'll be able to ban known money launderers, but for those rules to get up and about, we really need the support of the federal government.
Joshua Mercer, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Port Augusta locals can look forward to paying less for rates this financial year after Council officially adopted its final annual business plan and budget for 2022-2023. The decision comes after a community consultation forum which was held last month, with councillors passing the budget in a follow-up special council meeting earlier this week. The new budget will be a 1.2% reduction in general rates, budgeted in the previous financial year.
We've looked at and considered what we can do to try to reduce that impact to the people, and I believe we've achieved that. I think if you go back to our rate situations at 3.2 the first year, zero average, and this year we're 1.2% less than 2020-2021. So I challenge any council that could have achieved that.
The Mayor says this has been achieved without hindering the council's services or new projects in the city. The news welcomed by community members who have been calling for a reduction in the city's high rates for several years. National Diabetes Week aims to shed light on the fastest growing health condition in the world. Over 1.2 million Australians are living with the condition, and now Diabetes SA is looking to educate people through a range of community screenings running through regional townships.
A sad reality where one person every 5 minutes develops diabetes. National Diabetes Week serving as a reminder for people to look after their health and get screened to prevent type 2 diabetes.
And type 2 diabetes is related to a combination of genetic factors and family history, so things that we can't change, but also there are a vast majority of risk factors that are related to lifestyle, so things like our diets, how active we are.
Undiagnosed type 2 diabetes is affecting around 30% of South Australians, and up to 58% of type 2 cases can be prevented by leading a healthier lifestyle. Diabetes SA is looking to improve these statistics by holding an awareness detection campaign in regional townships.
So we visited 10 different regional areas, including several in the Eyre Peninsula, and basically held community screening events where we encouraged community members to complete what's called the AusD Risk Tool.
The test consists of 11 questions and determines one's risk of developing type 2 diabetes. Results from last year's testing showing a high percentage of people are at risk.
And of those, 550 or 81% completed the AusD Risk Tool, so the risk screening tool. And of those people, 75% were in that high risk category.
But there are many ways to prevent and reduce the risk of diabetes.
But there are many risk factors that we can actually change. So things like how many fruit and veggies we eat, how active we are, whether or not we smoke, our waist circumference.
For those looking to take the AusD Risk test, you can answer the 11 questions via the Diabetes SA website. Henry Millick, 7 Spencer Gulf News.
Still to come tonight, will the alcohol-free zones in Menindee, Wilcannia and Ivanhoe be extended even further? And activities galore for Spencer Gulf school kids with an interest in science living on the Copper Coast. Welcome back to 7 Spencer Gulf News. The Central Darling Shire is proposing the renewal of the existing alcohol-free zones for Wilcannia, Menindee and Ivanhoe. A report will go on public display to give members of the community a chance to comment. Our reporter Joshua Mercer has more.
While the renewal of the alcohol-free zones in Wilcannia, Menindee and Ivanhoe is contentious, Council says it's to protect public health and safety. Section 644 of the Local Government Act of 1993 and ministerial guidelines requires evidence of the effectiveness of the alcohol-free zones from preventing alcohol-related crime activities and injuries. In Wilcannia, Menindee and Ivanhoe, there's statistics from the New South Wales Police and Far West Local Health District to back up the renewal request. For 30 days, the information and maps of those existing zones will be available to look at on Council's website. But Council is yet to disclose when that will happen. As part of the Council's process, it will be advertising the proposed renewal and notifying various stakeholders, such as New South Wales Police Barrier Command, Far West Local Health, Aboriginal Lands Council, as well as licence holders like the Wilcannia Golf Club and hotels in those towns. The state's Anti-Discrimination Board is also on that list. Other states and territories have taken an extra step in curbing antisocial behaviour with the introduction of the Banned Drinkers Register, which was set up to limit the access of alcohol to those who are placed on it, though there are no talks of that being brought into the Central Darling Shire. To find out when public consultations will be opened on this matter or to see the minutes from last month's meeting, head to Central Darling Shire's website.
Hands-on locals are doing their bit in caring for the Northern and York region's landscape. Residents receiving nearly $200,000 from the latest round of the Grassroots Grants program, which will go towards caring for the region's soil, water and biodiversity. The money was split between 22 successful applicants, each receiving up to $10,000 for the on-the-ground projects. Holly Crawford from Bundalir Forest Community Areas Association and Kim Thomas from the Nookanu Wapmathura Aboriginal Corporation, just two of the successful applicants. With the July school holidays in full swing, keeping kids occupied and off technology can be difficult, especially when it's cold and gloomy outside. Fortunately, the Copper Coast Library understands this predicament and is passionate about entertaining kids while educating them at the same time. This week, the library has supplied science activities for children to take home or stay at the library to complete. Next week, students will learn about the creatures that once roamed the earth. Stay with us after the break. From larrikinism to satire and resistance, the new art exhibition challenging what it means to be Australian, and the university spin-off getting school-age kids interested and prepared for tertiary education. Welcome back to 7 Spencer Golf News. The Port Pirie Regional Art Gallery is constantly updating its exhibitions, and for the next couple of months, the gallery will showcase not just Australian, which brings together 20 artists across generations and diverse cultural backgrounds.
It's quirky and controversial, and like any piece of art, it's important to keep an open mind. The Port Pirie Regional Art Gallery has finished setting up their latest exhibition for the public to enjoy.
It's really important that we get to have a really diverse range of exhibitions here at the gallery. It's important that we get to see a multitude of different views, a multitude of different arts practices.
The exhibition, Just Not Australian, explores how diverse cultural backgrounds feel and interpret contemporary Australian nationhood. Irony, satire and resistance are themes explored in many of the pieces.
Some of the artists that are in this current exhibition are like sort of the who's who of exploring the politics of national identity.
The exhibition includes many different mediums of art, including portraits, digital projections and 3D art walls, and it is hoped it will inspire the public with their own creative endeavours.
Includes artwork ranging from the 1990s right through to newly commissioned works.
The politics of images are used by artists to communicate their lived experience of what being Australian means to them specifically.
We're offering daily guided tours as well, so that we're encouraging people to really engage with some of the themes.
The exhibition will be on show until September, so be sure to check it out. Annabelle Francis, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Port Lincoln school students will get the chance to continue their learning these school holidays through the Children's University program. Schools from across the region gathered to learn about dinosaurs in the first of many workshops, aiming to get students thinking about their future career pathways.
Children's University roaring loudly in Port Lincoln. Students gathered from schools across the Eyre Peninsula for the university's first workshop, where they learnt about the history of dinosaurs.
Dinosaurs are always popular with young children. We really want to point out that studying dinosaurs can lead to other career pathways, such as archaeology.
As a part of the university's program, each student is given a passport where they must fill it up with hours of learning in order to graduate.
Every time you come to one of these events, you fill out your date and you get an hour for each thing you come to.
Passports are allocated to the children. It's their passport to learning, and children's goal is to achieve 30 hours of initial learning.
Children's University is a national program run all around Australia, providing its students with opportunities to navigate their own learning. Now schools in Port Lincoln are getting involved.
Lincoln Gardens Primary, we've just joined the Children's University, so we organised a excursion but in the school holidays. So a few of the children met at the school and then we transported them down here.
And it doesn't stop once school holidays are over, with schools looking to implement extracurricular activities throughout the day.
During the school term, we'll start doing activities at recess and lunchtime, so gardening clubs and other types of games clubs, and then they'll be able to accumulate hours for their passport.
Henry Millick, 7 Spencer Golf News.
Stay with us. After the break, we've got the latest on what to catch and where from our Spencer Golf fishing experts. And we'll have the weather details with Alex Sykes. Welcome back to 7 Spencer Golf News. It's been a bit chilly in our region lately, but what can we expect? It is winter after all. But as we all know by now, a bit of morning rain and frost isn't enough to keep our anglers out of the water. Here's this week's Fish and Tips.
Hi, Whalers Fishing Tips this week. Unfortunately, the fishing has slowed a lot just after the bloodworm run. However, those putting in the time certainly have still got a feed. The best area to target for the boaties have been down towards Cowlitz Landing and further south, even as far as Cow, and they've been picking up some good fish. The whiting have slowed up out the front, but there still is a few good squid holding up there. Over towards the eastern shoal, there's been some really nice schools of snook. So if you're up for a feed of snook, that's the area to target. Land-based across Whyalla, still a few salmon holding up around the lighthouse and a few squid down in front of the Point Lowly sand hills.
Some excellent tips there, as per usual. Time now to take a look at what's happening in the weather with Alex Sykes. Good evening to you, Alex. Claire was in the minuses for an absurd amount of time this morning.
Good evening. Maddie, that's right. It wasn't just an hour or two, but 6 between 2 a.m. and 8 a.m. It was well below freezing. -1.5 was the official reading, but the feels like temperature was closer to -4. Clare eventually warming up to 12 degrees quite late in the day after 3 p.m. Elsewhere, Cooper Pedy and Port Augusta both reached 17 degrees today. Looking more broadly at today's weather map now, Woodner and Port Lincoln both reached 16 degrees, 15 in Port Pirie and Adelaide, Whyalla and Kadina topped 14. Taking a look at the satellite image now, a high pressure system centred over eastern South Australia will move eastwards to be centred over the eastern states tomorrow. A trough and cold front will enter the far west of South Australia towards the end of tomorrow. Another high pressure system will establish south of the Bight early next week with an associated ridge extending over the state. Moving on to tomorrow's weather outlook now, and we'll start with the Gulf waters. Northeasterly winds 10 to 15 knots, increasing up to 25 knots later in the evening. Seas around 1 metre up to 1.5 metres, and south to southwesterly swell 1 to 1.5 metres. Cloudy in Port Lincoln tomorrow, set to reach a max of 16 degrees, 15 in Cleve, Woodner cloudy and 17 degrees. Partly cloudy in Whyalla tomorrow, 17 degrees, 18 degrees is forecast for Port Augusta. Not too bad at all, and Kadina will between 4 and 14 degrees. 16 in Port Pirie, partly cloudy, 13 in Clare, and Broken Hill will get down to -3 tonight, but 13 degrees tomorrow. Taking a look further through the week now, and we can see Broken Hill and Port Pirie are looking rather windy, gusts of up to 45 kilometres an hour in both of those cities. The whole region is looking quite warm, 23 in Cooper Pedy, 20 in Port Augusta Augusta and sunny, up to 4 millimetres of rain expected in Port Lincoln though. Moving on to Sunday's forecast now, both the Upper Spencer Gulf and the Eyre Peninsula can expect some rain, not too cold though. 19 in Port Augusta, 18 in Whyalla and Broken Hill. And finally, Monday's outlook. Port Lincoln locals will start the working week with partly cloudy conditions and a high chance of showers, heading for 14 degrees. Kadina, the only other centre on our map expecting any rain. Everywhere else is looking pretty average, to be honest, Maddie. Mostly fine with temperatures in the early to mid-teens. And that's all the weather from me for tonight. Maddie, I'll see you soon with an update. It's back to you.
Thanks for that, Alex. And that's the local news this Thursday. I'm Madeline Kerr. Thanks for joining us. I'll have updates a little later, but until then, enjoy your evening. Good night.